From working at a car wash for minimum wage to breaking contemporary Christian music history with the biggest debut album of all time, these are 7 things you didn't know about Josiah Queen. Beginning with number 1. Josiah Queen didn't just grow up going to church. He basically grew up living inside the church building. Born in Clearwater, Florida, and raised in Newport Richey, Josiah's entire childhood was wrapped around faith and ministry. Both of his parents served as pastors at their local church, which meant that church wasn't just a Sunday thing for the Queen family. Ministry became their everyday life and identity. But here's what makes his upbringing unique compared to most pastors' kids. Many children of pastors rebel against church culture, feel suffocated by spiritual expectations, or eventually walk away from faith entirely. However, Josiah took a completely different path. He would actually beg his parents to go to church early.
I grew up, I think like a lot of people, I grew up in church. I loved going to church. My parents are pastors. My dad was a youth pastor growing up, and my mom was over the kids ministry. And so I grew up and I just begged my parents, because there was 3 services. I begged to go early. We go at 6:30 in the morning. I begged to go with them to church. And so, yeah, I grew up in church. And I still love the church.
The community drew him in. Watching his parents serve inspired him, and being in that environment felt like another home rather than an obligation. And his mother wasn't just any pastor serving one congregation. She worked as a traveling preacher who hit the road on weekends, moving from church to church while teaching on evangelism and prayer. Josiah would pack up his things and travel alongside her, leading worship for communities of believers scattered across the country. This foundation and early exposure to ministry life shaped everything about who he'd eventually become as an artist. The authenticity people hear in his music comes from growing up watching faith lived out in real time, rather than just talked about from a pulpit. And while Josiah had a faith-filled foundation shaping his character, there was something else that would become key to his later success, that wouldn't come as naturally to him. If you've heard Josiah Queen's music, you know he's skilled at the piano. His melodies are well crafted, his chord progressions are thoughtful, and his musicality is impressive for his age. But as a child, Josiah hated his piano lessons. He dreaded those sessions and disliked sitting at that piano bench working through scales and exercises. For young Josiah, piano felt like more of a punishment. The lessons were something his parents required him to do, and not something he chose. Josiah went through the motions and showed up when necessary, but his interest wasn't there. However, things changed when Josiah was around 9 years old. Something happened at a youth conference that shifted his perspective on music, and on that same piano he used to dislike. When Josiah Queen was around 9 years old, his parents took him to a large young adults conference in Kansas City. During that conference, surrounded by thousands of people and immersed in worship, something significant happened for Josiah. He didn't just learn about God that day, he experienced what he describes as a personal encounter. The faith that had surrounded him his whole life through his parents became personal to him.
My parents kind of forced me into playing piano because I wanted to play drums, but they wanted me to play, piano. So I took piano lessons, and then I had this, I was like, I want to play. I went to a young adults conference when I was really little. My parents brought me, and that's when I really encountered God for the first time in my life. I don't know, there's a difference between going to church and knowing of Jesus, but then you're like, wow, you know what I mean? Where I felt nobody was praying for me, but I just remember being at this big young adults conference and just experiencing the presence of God in my life more than I've never in my life, and at such a young age, 10 or 11, something like that. And so I went home and I was already learning piano, so I started learning worship music and started singing worship songs. And they taught at this young adults thing for musicians was to open up the Psalms and just sing the Psalms and put your own melody behind it. So
after returning home from Kansas City, the piano lessons felt different. Josiah developed a desire to write worship songs, not because he was told to, but because he wanted to. That experience at just 9 years old marked the beginning of his journey as a worship songwriter. And while Josiah was discovering his interest in worship music, he wouldn't wait long to get involved in his local church community in ways most kids don't get to experience. Starting at age 13, Josiah Queen spent his Friday nights at church leading prayer sessions. He was creating songs inspired by the Bible and singing them over these gatherings. Every Friday night, this became his routine. Josiah would show up at church, sit down at the piano, or grab his guitar and sing scripture over the group. There was no set list or rehearsals, just spontaneous worship drawn from the Bible. Those Friday night sessions became his training ground. He would learn how to read a room, sense when a song was connecting with people, and let scripture guide his melodies. By his teenage years, Josiah had already accumulated needed a considerable amount of worship experience. And after all those years of preparation and what seemed like a bright future ahead of him, it wouldn't come without some challenges along the way. At 18 years old, Josiah faced a different reality. He wasn't a successful musician yet and found himself working at a car wash for minimum wage. Josiah spent his days washing cars in Florida's heat, scrubbing tires, wiping down windshields, and doing repetitive manual labor. The work was physically demanding, and during this time, he was questioning whether music would ever develop into a career. But Josiah kept writing songs regardless. Between car wash shifts, he'd go home and work on music that no one was hearing yet. Songs like Fishes and Loaves came from this period, inspired by the story in Scripture where a young boy offered 5 barley loaves and 2 fish to Jesus. Prayer became his daily practice during this time, but while he was working at the car wash and planning a wedding, his circumstances were about to change in an unexpected way. By 2023, Josiah had moved from the car wash to working as a janitor at the church where he grew up. The church where he'd led Friday night prayer sessions as a teenager was now the place he cleaned while still figuring out how he'd support a household. But during this time, something was happening with his music online. Josiah had been posting songs on TikTok for years, with minimal results, a few hundred views, and occasionally 1,000, but nothing was gaining significant traction. And while he kept posting feeling compelled to continue, gradually, things started changing. Some of his songs began getting shared and reaching new audiences. Positive responses came in, and opportunities to travel and perform at churches started appearing. This created a problem with his employment. Josiah was supposed to be at the church daily for his janitorial duties, but he was traveling to play music, following what seemed like opportunities opening up. Eventually, the church leadership made a decision about his employment. They let him go because he couldn't fulfill the job requirements anymore.
When I released a song you guys played called "The Prodigal," that song went really big on like Instagram, actually, more than TikTok. And yeah, after that, I was able to quit my job as a janitor at the church. And I guess I was just gone a lot. I was traveling a lot, so I couldn't even. They actually fired me. They said, "Hey, you don't clock in enough. So we're just gonna
church is getting dirty while you're out singing."
I got fired from a church job.
Getting fired right before his wedding during a period of financial uncertainty appeared to be the worst possible timing. But losing that job became the unexpected turning point that removed his safety net entirely, transforming music from a hopeful possibility into one of his only viable options. In that season of complete uncertainty and fear, Josiah chose to commit everything to pursuing music, offering what he had to God and trusting in him no matter where it led. In April 2023, Josiah posted a video of himself performing a song called "I Am Barabbas" on TikTok. The video featured just him performing a song about the prisoner who was pardoned instead of Jesus. Josiah posted the video and went to sleep. The next morning, the video had accumulated millions of views. It had gone viral overnight. Comments flooded in, people shared it across platforms, and his phone filled with notifications.
Yeah, I wrote this one song, and it was called "I Am Barabbas," probably like 2 years ago, I think it was. I remember showing like just a demo, me and my guitar online. I remember waking up Good Friday or maybe it was on Easter to it, the video having like millions of views. And I was like, I was like, dude, I'm retiring. Like it was just, that was like a super cool moment for me. So that song was like, I was posting already on TikTok for years, like, and it wasn't working. And that one song, and after that song, you just kept releasing music like literally every month, every 2 months. And so
that viral moment marked the beginning of rapid success. "I Am Barabbas" charted on Billboard's top 50 hottest Christian songs. Josiah transitioned from someone posting songs from his bedroom to an artist gaining significant attention. Record labels reached out with offers. Tour opportunities came in from venues across the country, and his circumstances shifted dramatically. On May 24th, 2024, Josiah released his debut album, titled "The Prodigal." This was months after he'd been mopping church floors and washing cars for minimum wage. He recorded the album independently with a friend in Nashville. There was no major label backing and no large budget, just Josiah and his worship songs. And what would happen next made history in Christian music. "The Prodigal" debuted at #1 on the Billboard Top Christian Albums chart. In its first week, the album generated 6.6 million global streams across all all platforms. That number set a new record. It became the biggest streaming debut by a new artist in contemporary Christian music history. No artist had achieved those numbers before in the genre. Josiah sold out all 24 dates of his first headline tour. He performed at the Grand Ole Opry. He received Dove Award nominations. Billboard named him the #1 new Christian artist of 2024. In August 2025, his sophomore album Mount Zion also debuted at #1, giving him 2 consecutive #1 albums within a year. Josiah Queen's trajectory shows that circumstances can change rapidly when you put your trust in the Lord. His journey demonstrates the power of persistence, faith, and placing your future completely in the Lord's hands.